Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday Western U.S. regional forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We begin first with the latest U.S. drought monitor that was released on Thursday, and there has been some substantial change in the Pacific Northwest. We can now see that we are down to just a very few small regions that are still showing up on the drought monitor, and this is incredible to see because the heavy rain that we have been seeing over the last month, while it has certainly impacted operations, I'm specifically thinking about the inability to get that last cutting of hay in. The overall drought health picture going into fall is very good. But again, I'm thinking more on the water balance side of things rather than on the impact in our operations, because the cool and wet weather we have endured at the end of this fall, the beginning of this fall and the end of summer has impacted a lot of us in a very negative way, especially some of the sub-freezing temperatures we saw earlier this week. To see California completely drought-free is an amazing thing. This has been one of the longest stretches I've seen California drought-free in a while. And again, we're just continuing to see, even though some heavier rains earlier last month, I should say, came through parts of Arizona, still the total performance of this year's monsoon was well below average, and as a consequence, still drought setting up in that area. Now, I wanted to look specifically at the Northwest because we don't, of course, think of September as a wet month. And it's interesting, looking over the last 70 years, do you see that blue line that runs through the middle of the image? Well, we've actually seen over that time period a drop in our average September precipitation. In fact, it's dropped about, because we normally only get about 1.5 inches of rainfall when we average the whole of the Northwest. This is about a 10% drop overall in precipitation. So that's the longer term trend. You can, of course, see the year-on-year variability. We will see September of 2019 really coming up here, because this only goes through 18. So expect this to really rebound back up into this area as being one of the wettest Septembers we've actually had on record. So very interesting to see this buck this trend, and we have to talk about why that is. But first, before I get there, I just want to at least show you over the next 15 days. While the map suggests that you see some drier colors in through here, specifically in parts of the Pacific Northwest, it is not going to be dry. It is just slightly drier than average. You'll actually see multiple systems still sneaking through, coming out of the Gulf of Alaska into the Pacific Northwest over the coming days, and each of them kind of rides in like this and then becomes a powerful system in the midsection of the United States. So we've got a lot to talk about there. But before I get there, I want to continue with our perspective on what September and October gave us, because the last week has been extremely cold over parts of the Pacific Northwest, specifically parts of Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. And even down through California, we saw much below average temperatures, while the southeastern United States baked. Now, continuing on with this kind of idea of how this compares to normal, let's at least look at the upper level flow pattern to see if change is coming, okay? So as we play this out over the next few days, this is getting into Friday. Finally, we get rid of that deeper trough. It sweeps out into the Central Plains this weekend, produces a low pressure system in the middle part of the U.S. This is going to allow for the Western United States, as we get through the weekend, for a brief warm up to occur. But you can see what is sweeping out of Alaska, coming through British Columbia toward the Pacific Northwest by Tuesday into Wednesday of next week. So this is just another chance at bringing in some precip and some cooler weather sweeping into the Northwest, as that trough dives into the central United States by this time period, bringing us a first widespread frost into the middle part of the country. Now, after that, this is what's interesting about the pattern. It tends to want to flatten out a bit, but this is probably because we're averaging a lot of model runs together to produce this forecast. But in general, we don't seem to want to shake the overall, trough that is out west. Now, I'm not saying this is nearly the size and depth of the trough we just dealt with, but this is not heights rising as we get out to like the day 8 through 10 time period. Now, one thing I will be watching out for is by mid-month, is the model properly advertising this pattern, such that we're going to be watching a lot of troughing here in and around Alaska, allowing for a rebuilding of some warmth here by middle of the month of October. I'm talking about the 16th, 17th, and 18th time frame. A lot of uncertainty out that far, but something that we need to keep an eye on here. So if we just put that together, well, certainly over the next 5 days and then over days 6 through 10, we aren't able to really shake this cooler than average weather we're enduring in the northern part, the northwestern part of the United States. You can see both maps over here on the right showing as the troughs sweep down from this direction, the cooler air coming and staying in place. But as I said, there is a bit of a brief warm-up in there, and we'll talk about that and show it to you in just a few moments. Because when you average them all together over a 5-day time period, yes, it looks cool. But I at least wanted to come back to this idea of trends, and this pattern is really bucking a long-term trend. Take a look at this. This is just for the Northwest, but for September and October, over the last 70 years, we have picked up on average a degree. Now, 1 degree, that may not seem substantial when I say it like that, but it is very substantial. This is telling us that our summer transitioning into fall patterns have been on average warming with time. Yet you've now seen 2019 really buck this trend, and will more than likely finish somewhere down in this vicinity, which will be neat to see. That is a substantial, and it's far below average. So we'll take a look at that when these data are finally released later on at the end of October to see how we ended up doing here. But I wanted at least for you to see those longer term trends. So getting into some of the details, with the systems that are sweeping through the Northwest, we will be bringing in good chances here of higher elevation snow, not only in the coastal mountain ranges in Washington and Oregon, but also into the Rockies here. But this is at least a drier look over what you have seen in recent times. California, we're still waiting on systems to basically change the trajectory of the moisture coming out of the Central Pacific to take aim on you. So this is certainly not going to be a wetter time period for California. But let's take a look at what we're expecting here. Why these scattered showers throughout the Pacific Northwest to start our day as we work through Saturday and Sunday. First system kicks off and finally start to see a bit of a rebounding in temperatures as the precipitation goes away toward the end of the weekend. Watch it again with me very quickly here. This is midday Friday, so we're watching through parts of the Snake River Valley, but really getting into the mountains here for some precipitation, widely scattered storms mid-morning. We then still see the upper level trough still spinning here, so we're not done yet with our widely scattered showers and quite a bit of cloud cover for the Pacific Northwest. The system then moves on to the Central Plains. Remember, we still have quite a bit of snow cover up here from the last week's event. And as that system ejects, it's going to bring in some precipitation late in the overnight hours into early Saturday morning to eastern Montana. And now after that, we still have coming through Washington in northern Idaho and parts of the mountains of Montana, more precip for early Saturday morning through midday Saturday. But you see things clear out for the weekend. Now to show you beyond that, I'm going to flip over to the GFS model. We've seen this, so that's the first system that sweeps through and comes out on, there it is, this is now Sunday morning. Now we see that after that, Sunday, getting into Monday, relatively benign couple of days there. Much of the action will be up here along the British Columbia coastline. But we are watching a trough sweep through on Tuesday. So there it comes in, sweeping in on Tuesday morning, coming through Washington, Oregon, into Idaho. And then by the time we get into the overnight hours on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, we have enough cold air on the backside of this to be putting more snow down in this area. And in fact, this storm system, as it moves through, has the potential to produce a lot of snow here, stretching from Montana through Wyoming and then now into the Central Plains. But after that goes through, again, this is just a system for the Northwest, impacts us on Tuesday and Wednesday. We get another brief dry down before our next system comes in next weekend. So we've got 3 systems to watch over the next 10 days or so, but none of them are quite to the caliber of the system that we just saw. So like I said, even though the models show up on the drier side of things, we still have some widely scattered precipitation coming in and some higher elevation snow in the near term. Now let's get back to that discussion on those temperatures. This is Friday morning's departure from normal when we think about the high temperatures later on we're going to see today. As we play this one forward, let's just see how things evolve. So this again, Friday, high temperature departure. This is now Saturday. This is finally when that system starts to eject. So look, by Sunday, moderation finally comes back in. Look at California finally showing some above average temperatures, but still the upper level trough sitting in this area, keeping much of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming on the cooler side of things. Getting into Monday, this is when we get a little bit of a relaxation. But remember, our next trough is now sweeping down, bringing in precipitation chances on Tuesday here into the Pacific Northwest. So it'll be a short-lived Sunday, Monday warm-up, because by Tuesday, the cool air starts to come in here. But California, 4 to 8 degrees warmer than average as this stays to the south of this active storm track. But by next Wednesday, now we're back into that colder regime here, seeing temperatures 10 to 20 degrees below average, especially in parts of Montana. and that lasts out into next Thursday as well. So that is your near-term temperature pattern. Looking specifically at California's high temperatures, certainly on Friday, a lot of mid to upper 70s in the Central Valley here. As we play this one forward, let's at least see the warm-up here. So this is now Saturday's highs getting into the low 80s. Sundays now we're creeping back up toward that 90-degree mark. But with that trough sweeping back in, we don't see this hanging around for Tuesday into Wednesday. We certainly don't see us climbing way back up into the upper 90s anytime soon. So this is certainly a more palatable pattern, I guess you'd say, in terms of temperatures here, but certainly kind of avoiding the extremes on either side. Now, to finish this up, I at least want to show you what the 11 to 15 day time period looks like. Remember, at this time, the models are advertising a deeper trough in this area, which is going to relax the jet stream a bit and allow for more seasonable temperatures to come in at that time. But I'd be on the lookout for some cooler air sneaking in through this area at times. So maybe we're falsely keeping the hopes up here of Wyoming and Montana on warmer temperatures. I think we may get some cooler weather in there. And even just to get temperatures back toward normal in Washington and Oregon is going to feel fantastic. But no major anomalies out this far, thinking about the western side of the United States. I just want to give you a quick update, the things I'm thinking about longer term over the weekend. This is what the week 3 outlook looks like from the European model. It is trying by week 3 to keep this area on a slight cool bias, while much of the surrounding area is going to be seeing warmer than average temperatures. As we get toward the end of the month of October, and I'll be spending a lot of time this weekend researching this, we are seeing a warm up of ocean temperatures in the Central Pacific. This is way over in the Central Pacific, not over by South America. And if that helps, that could help get the jet stream really going in some sort of fashion like this. And that could change things up for California as we progress toward the end of the month. I'm talking the end of the month of October, beginning of November here. So these are just a couple of things I'll be watching. It's a weak signal at this point, but it's worth keeping an eye out on. So with that, I think I better just wrap up this forecast video and hope that you all have a good weekend. We will talk to you again next week. Thank you.